Hi, my name is Jacob Harrower, and this is project number 4, How the Issues of NIL, the Transfer Portal, and Eligibility Rules Affect College Education. So, for the purpose of this project, I want to investigate how NIL, the Transfer Portal, and Eligibility Rules have affected the college education of student athletes across the nation. I hope that through this project, I am able to persuade student athletes to stop taking unfair advantages of NIL, the transfer portal, and eligibility rules, and that they will start valuing their education like they should be. I also hope to convince other people of the severity of these issues and that something needs to be done to make a change for these issues. For this project, I chose to compile this video of multiple interviews I did with friends of mine from Texas Tech. Some of the members of this interview have differing opinions on these issues. Some of them are for these issues, some of them are against them, some of them are indifferent to these issues, and some are uninformed on these issues. So let's get into these interviews and see what they have to say about them. So Nick, what do you think about these new issues in college athletics with NIL deals, the transfer portal, and eligibility rules for the student athletes?
I think the biggest actual problems are actually just the transfer portal. I think they need to set like a cap on, like, you should get like one free transfer, and then let's say your coach either retires, gets fired, or transfer schools, then you should get one more free transfer for one, like, just let you go. Because right now you can just transfer and be like, oh, well, this place offered me more money next year, might as well just leave. Get up and leave this program, which also hurts the programs because they're not able to instill any culture in their teams, and that becomes a big issue. Can you keep these guys 4 years, or are you worried about them going to play Bama next year, and then Tech 1 year, and then Texas? Like, it's just not realistic for these coaches, and having to worry about so much more.
All right. And how do you think college athletes value their education while at these schools?
I mean, we saw from the Ohio State player who transferred to Notre Dame where he said, oh, we actually have to go to class now. So that kind of shows you that a lot of these bigger programs don't truly value education at all. They're just bringing these football players in just to win games. And these players are coming in just to win. They don't care if they get an education out of it.
So you'd agree with me on that college education has really started devaluing within the last 5 years?
Especially for athletes, yes. I don't think it's seen as the same light as before. It's not seen as an opportunity anymore.
All right. So I would say we need to put a cap on NIL because there's some athletes out there getting a lot more money than they probably need to be having at this age. So certain people should only be getting paid certain amounts. And then I'd agree with you on the transfer portal. We kind of need to limit that because we've got players going to 4 different schools. And, I mean, we really know there's no track of their education going on there at all.
Yeah. And also, I think another issue is, like, people being in college for, like, 6 or 7 years. Like, that is insane. Like, Carson, or what is it?
Carson Beck.
Yeah, Carson Beck. He was, how many years was he? 6, right?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
So, I mean, that's bad.
Yeah. That was kind of into my next point about eligibility. We've got guys that are playing that are in like their mid-20s when either they need to be turning pro or finding actual careers at this point. So, yeah.
And these guys could be getting PhDs if they're in college this long, and they're just not. They're just not worried about that type of thing.
But would you agree that we need to take some steps to kind of put a cap on these couple of things, and then that might...
I think NIL does need some sort of a cap. But I do think there still needs to be some form of payment to these athletes because they are putting their bodies on the line. And so you could easily get like a brain injury where you're not able to work again, or you just become a little stupid. And that's kind of a problem. Even if you did go to school for this education, you're not going to come away with much if you get too far injured in the brain.
Would you agree that maybe by putting a limit on these things, our value for their education will go up and they'll start to take it a bit more seriously?
I think so. I think especially the ones who don't think they're going pro will start to value it a lot more.
All right. Well, thank you, Nick. So, McKenna, what do you think about the new NIL deals for college athletes to get paid, the additional rules to the transfer portal recently, and the extra years of eligibility that athletes have gotten?
I don't really know much about the new rules or the transfer portal, but I know that the athletes get paid to play sports and they get capped off, and all schools have to pay the same amount.
All right. And then what do you think about college education for student athletes?
What about it?
Well, how do you think they see it? Do you think they value it very highly, or?
Probably not, because some people probably didn't even have intentions of coming to college, but the only reason they did was because of the sports factor. So education is probably not the first priority. It's a little different how in high school it's student athlete. It's probably a little different than it is in college.
All right. And what do you think about student athletes who have kind of been abusing these new deals they get with getting paid and getting extra years and can just go wherever they want to go to play?
I think it's a little frustrating because, like I said, it should be student athlete, student before athlete. The sports is an addition to the education that you're getting that's supposed to be an entertainment for everyone else. So when they're abusing that, it's, I don't know, I guess kind of frustrating.
So would you kind of agree with the statement that college education has been devalued, especially in the last 5 years for these student athletes?
I would agree so, because it's kind of become like a name game, and a lot of the times the schools are chosen based upon on the success of their sports than the actual education they're receiving.
Okay. And then, so from my stance, I think that we kind of need to put a limit on how much each player can get paid for NIL, because at this point all the big schools are just buying out the best players, kind of leaving some of the smaller schools like Division IIs and stuff, and the smaller Division I schools behind compared to the big Division Is who can afford to buy everyone else. And then also they kind of need to put some caps on the transfer portal, because everyone who doesn't play at one place just goes somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about that? You think that'd be a good solution? Or?
I agree with that. I feel like it'd even help with fan base, because if athletes stay at a school longer than just a year and up and leave, it'll even like benefit the college itself. So I agree with both those statements.
All right, and then probably I also think they need to find a certain set of standards for their eligibility rules and kind of stick to those and be able to enforce them, because there's been some crazy cases this year, especially with one player at Alabama who played in the G League and then tried to come back and play in college. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with that as well, because what type of eligibility rules, like, you're referring to?
Like, most of the time you get 4 years to play and stuff.
Yeah, I think it should be capped to that.
All right, thank you. So, Caroline, what do you think about NIL deals, the transfer portal, and some of the new eligibility cases that have come forward?
Yeah, personally, I've known a couple people who've really benefited from using the transfer portal, and I also know a couple people who have abused it, and so I'm kind of indifferent in that sense.
Okay, and what do you think about how student athletes value their college education?
Yeah, so I actually do have a women's basketball player in one of my classes. I sit by her and I kind of see that she does appreciate like our class and appreciate getting to learn. But I also am aware that some other schools, maybe like Iowa, University of Texas, might not appreciate their schooling just as much.
Okay, and what would you say about how college education has kind of been devalued by these student athletes in the past few years?
Yeah, I know a couple athletes who really want to get a degree, and they're at college to be a student, and then they're an athlete. And I do know that there's people who are college athletes who are athlete than student. So I think it's gotten a little more athlete than student now in the past 5-10 years. And so, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you think these issues have definitely kind of caused athletes to not see their education as one of the more important aspects as they probably should? They're concerned more about their athletic careers, their money, and their image and everything.
I mean, I definitely believe that there are athletes out there who are very much like about the fame, the money, and putting their college career, their athletic career above everything else. But you also do have your very humble athletes out there as well. So.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely some people that take advantage of the system, but they're, for the most part, I'd say they try to follow by the line. And
yeah, especially at Texas Tech, we good folk up here.
Yeah, we are. Do you think probably we need to start making some limits to these things? Like maybe these players need to only get paid a certain amount of money. Athletes shouldn't be able to just transfer to a different school every year when they're not getting to play or they don't like the coaches. And then we need to stop some of these like mid-20s athletes coming back and playing against these younger college kids. Like they need to move on past this step in their life.
Yes, I do agree that there should be caps on things, especially NIL and like maybe an age like cap. There was a guy who was at Bama who went to the Spurs who then is trying to come back to Bama, and he's already like played in kind of like the big leagues. He knows what it's like to be with the big boys, and he's trying to come back and play with freshmen in college, fresh 18-year-olds, and so that's been kind of an interesting thing to watch play out. And like we definitely have seen some NIL deals that are pretty high, and which kind of feels a little wrong. And like the university should be maybe paying for better improvements on campus or to do with in the university. So yeah.
Do you think maybe if we've set a limit to these things that the aspect of education for these athletes would start to become more important to them? They kind of see it as one of the bigger concerns for when they're figuring out where they want to play and stuff.
I would hope so, just because I have really appreciated myself going through my college experience and getting to further my education. And so I would hope that these athletes could see that there's more to life than just playing a sport and that they are more than just the sport.
All right, well, thank you, Caroline.
Yep.
Callie, what do you think about the new NIL deals, the transfer portal, and the recent eligibility rules for student athletes?
I'm here for them. I think when college athletes are here to play a sport, they need to get paid because they don't have time between practices and going on away games to get a job. So I think it'll benefit them more in the future than anything else in the past.
Okay, and then what would you say about how a college athlete values their education?
I think it depends on the athlete. For most of them, this sounds bad, it depends on how much playing time they get. I mean, your fourth string is going to care about your education more than your first string. What good college athlete cares about their education?
All right, and then would you say there's been a devalue in the eyes of the athletes towards their education in the past couple of years?
If they're driven, no. If they're not, yes.
Okay, and then do you think these issues are kind of affecting how these athletes view their educations?
No.
You don't really see how, like, getting someone who is getting paid a lot more to go to this one school kind of affects, like, how much they want to view their education as an important aspect when making a decision?
No, I feel like students, they come in with a mindset, and usually their mindset doesn't change. So if they care about their education from the get-go, they're going to care about it, say, from Murray State to Alabama. And a kid that doesn't care, he's not going to care even if he's from a D3 up to a D1.
Okay.
So it really doesn't affect them.
All right, but don't you think, like, maybe some of these kids that are, like, transferring to, like, 3 or 4 different schools within their career, that's taking a major effect on their education, considering they're transferring to a new school each year and they kind of have to start over getting into their classes and stuff and getting to know their professors and their classmates and their resources at these schools.
Well, if they transferred that much already, they should be used to it.
Okay, then what about these kids who are playing for 6 years and they're barely walking away with a bachelor's degree? Don't you agree that's obviously having some effect? Because surely these kids should be getting master's degrees or PhDs by now.
I think it just depends on the kid. I mean, some kids just normally take them out of the classroom. They do take 6 years to get a degree. So what's different when you make them play sport?
Well, like, there's some of them that don't even go to classes. Like, Carson Beck wasn't going to class for 2 years because he's gained all these extra years. Don't you agree that's kind of setting a negative tone for education for these other athletes? Well, and they're like, okay, we can get away with this too since he did.
Sure, but you could also pull another kid out of U of Miami that's been there for 6 years and ask them if they go to class.
True, but obviously there's some schools that hold education to a higher standard than others, so I mean...
I guess as long as they're not on academic probation, it's not really a problem.
Okay. Do you think maybe if, like, we kind of put a cap on these things that maybe it would help? Since, like, these things are obviously, like, people are choosing different schools where they're going to get playing time, where they're going to get paid and stuff.
A cap probably would be beneficial in the future, but for right now, I think it's okay. I think we don't need one.
All right. Well, thank you, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you have it. That's all my interviews for this project. With each interview, I attempted to persuade each one of my friends to see my viewpoint on these issues that have affected college education and try to understand how important these issues are in the modern college sports. I also tried to convince them that something needs to be done to change these issues to make a positive difference on the lives of college athletes and how they value their education.